Hello, this is Drakaz, and I have the ARMA 3 beta. This came out this weekend, and I wanted to go through and play with some of the helicopters. I enjoy all the aspects of ARMA, but the thing I enjoy most is flying helicopters. And so I was very interested to get a hold of the new helicopters and see what they look like, see what they do, and so on. So this is version 0.71.106777. I believe that's the first beta that's come out. I'm not sure if this is the official beta. It's supposed to be released on the 25th, but today was the 22nd. So maybe they jumped the gun a little bit, or maybe just through Steam they enabled it a little sooner than everybody expected. So I'm going to go into the editor, and I have a scenario here I set up. That places all the new vehicles actually on the map. The old vehicles here, and the new helicopters here. Got the boats, and we put in I put in the new vehicles. So maybe we'll fly over and take a look at them. But this is mostly to talk about the helicopters. If you don't know how to use the editor, check out YouTube videos. There's a lot of great YouTube videos that will train you how to use the editor to do simple scenarios, to place vehicles so you can go practice flying, practice driving, shooting, and so on. This really is the place to learn how to fly, learn how to play the game initially when you don't know a lot about what's going on, rather than going on a public server. There's a lot of people that go on public servers and grab a helicopter and say, I think I'll try and learn how to fly a helicopter today, and they invariably crash and look like fools, piss a lot of people off, get banned from the server, and so on. So go into the editor, go grab some YouTube videos, learn how to use it, put a helicopter there, or whatever you want to learn, and go practice in the editor for a little bit. So we have here the original 4 helicopters from the Alpha. The MH9, the AH9. There's the AH9, which is actually called the Pawnee. It's not the Little Bird, which is what it was called in ARMA 2. It's called the Pawnee. The MH9, called the Hummingbird. I guess a hummingbird is, a cute little friendly bird that doesn't sting, which this one doesn't because it doesn't have weapons. Of course, the Ka-60s, which are not called Ka-60s anymore. I didn't look at the developer forums to figure out why, but they are now called the PO-30 Orca. The PO-30 Orca with camouflage and the PO-30 Orca black. The camouflage one still has the weapons, rockets and machine gun. The black one, of course, is just a transport-only helicopter. One of the things that I was looking forward to with the beta was whether they would improve the dash. I fly first person, not third person, and I much prefer sometimes using the actual dash gauges to see what's going on as opposed to the information in the upper left corner. There's a couple more pieces of information here. For example, the vertical speed indicator, which I have centered on the screen, will show me how fast the helicopter is rising or falling. These gauges actually work, and they're useful sometimes to know what's going on. Looking at the glass cockpit, it, however, does not appear to have changed from the Alpha. It still is kind of the blurry glass cockpit that we had in the Alpha, and I was hoping that they would improve that. I'm kind of leading up to a precursor here in that, looking at the glass cockpits in the new helicopters, they actually look like they have improved them and made them better. So yes, the glass cockpit works. It did in the Alpha as well. As far as some of the gauges, such as attitude, you can see it's changing, and the compass, as I rotate, works, but the other information, such as airspeed and altitude, do not. Most people probably don't care about this. Certainly the HUD, the information you see in the center of the screen, shows my direction at the top. It shows my speed at the left, and my horizontal speed, and it shows my altitude on the right. And if you look at the -4, -1 in the lower right hand corner, that would be my vertical speed indicator. So I'm going to rise quickly, full collective up, and I'm rising at 10. I'm assuming that that is 10 kilometers. Well, actually not sure what the units are on that. The gauge on the dash, right there, on the Pawnee and the Hummingbird is in hundreds of feet per minute. I'm not sure if that's what this gauge is. You know, it doesn't really matter what the units are. More to the point is that when you're flying a helicopter, you should pay attention to that gauge because it will show you how quickly you are going to hit the ground if you're going too fast for hitting the ground. I haven't flown much the new helicopters yet, or even the old ones with the beta, so some of what you're seeing me do here is my first time experience with it, with the beta, but my quick assessment of the K-60, or rather the Orca, is that it flies the same as it did before. They did not make any changes to the flight model. I'll fly it a little bit more maybe later and see if there's something different, but for the most part it does not seem to have changed. That's probably fine. The original beta, when they came out with it, I thought that the K-60 was capable of gaining ridiculous speed very quickly, but then in a later alpha release they fixed that. It's not so quick to speed up. I think it made it very difficult to fly originally because it would gain speed very quickly, and of course most of these helicopters, when they get past 70 kilometers per hour, they become very difficult to fly in a precision way because you lose tail rotor control. And that made the K-60 very difficult to fly. So in the later release of the Alpha, they fixed that. It doesn't gain speed quite so quickly. It still gains speed very quickly, but it just seems a lot more easy to handle now. But if you're new to flying an ARMA, you should probably grab one of the little guys here. It's a much easier helicopter to learn in. And the flight model, by the way, between the Alpha and the Beta for the Little Bird, well, the Hummingbird and the Pawnee, has not changed between the Alpha and the Beta. It feels exactly the same as well. And by the way, since I was talking about it, there's my vertical speed gauge. You see it rising up to about 20, 21. That's 20 times 100 feet per minute. And now I'm going to drop down, and it's going to go to about negative 20, 19, negative 19 feet per minute. 19 times 100 is 1900 feet per minute. They don't have that information on the upper left corner. I think that if they added that one piece of information to the upper left corner, then you could ignore the dash completely, and the upper left corner would have everything you needed to know. But since most of the helicopters have a HUD and they give you vertical speed, it's fine, it doesn't really matter. And after a while, you kind of get it figured out, and you don't really have to look at the gauge very much anymore anyway. But when you're learning, it's a good thing to look at. But I'm talking about vertical speed when I should be talking about the new helicopters. So there they are. 5 of them, actually 4 of them. We have on the close side here, closest to me is the CH-49 Mohawk. It's a very large transport helicopter. Next to that is the UH-80 Ghost Hawk, which I kind of call a stealth Black Hawk. Next to that is the Comanche-looking AH-99 Blackfoot. It looks like a Comanche, but none of these are actually real helicopters, so it's really called an AH-99 Blackfoot. Next to that is the Mi-48 Kajman, which kind of looks like a weird concoction of a Russian black shark mixed with a transport helicopter, maybe. I'm sure there will be many discussions about the aesthetics of the Kajman. It's, well, different looking. We'll just say that. So, let's go take a look at the Kajman. It's definitely loaded for causing some damage. It has rocket launchers, it has long-range rockets, and it has a 30mm cannon, a Gao type cannon. This is probably the helicopter that has the most armaments of all the new helicopters, of all the helicopters, period, because it has the short-range rockets plus it has the longer-range rockets. Although you'll see later that one of the other helicopters, I forget which one, actually, the Blackfoot actually has air-to-air missiles. The Cosman, the Blackfoot, they are, of course, attack helicopters. So they have a pilot seat in the back and a gunner seat in the front. The Ghost Hawk is not an attack helicopter, but it is a transport helicopter with, well, some pretty good stingers sticking out the side in the form of miniguns. I find it kind of funny that it's a stealth helicopter, but of course with the minigun sticking out the side, it is not going to be stealthy. I'm not sure if ARMA is going to model any of that, but I just thought that was a little humorous. And then of course we have the Mohawk, the CH-49 Mohawk. This is a really big helicopter. I guess this would be the equivalent of the Chinook, the large-scale transport helicopter. It has a lot of room to carry a lot of people, but it does not have any armaments. When I say it's big, I feel that I am dwarfed in the game by this helicopter, and when I flew it around a little bit earlier, it's a little more difficult to get into tight places since it's so big. So let's go ahead and start with the attack helicopters. We will get in the Cosman Black. You can get in as the gunner. I'll get in as the gunner first. I don't think you can switch from gunner to pilot once you're inside. I could on one. Maybe when I was there I could. We'll see. But anyway, more of the point is this is the gunner's position, and there is the optics. If you hit your zoom button, which you normally zoom like with a scope, then it takes you into the optic, so you can now control the position of the gun. This is very much like what you'd expect from ARMA 2. You can switch to the air-to-ground missile, and you know what, I'm not going to shoot because I think I'll destroy the helicopter. Well, let's find out what happens. First, let's go over here and air-to-ground, fire, and it went straight. And then I can switch to the Skyfire air-to-ground. There's a lot more of these. These are the rockets. They, of course, are lined up with the way the helicopter is. Because I don't have someone to fly gunner for me while I'm actually in the air, I don't know if they lock onto targets, so forgive me, I'm not going to play with that stuff. I just wanted to at least show or see what the various weapons were. So let's go out of that. So now I'm going to go to the pilot's position to get out and go as pilot. Still looks very weird to me to see something that kind of looks like a black shark, but has cargo capacity in the lower area. A helicopter for all purposes, but then that's typical for the KI type Russian helicopters. So, also the sound is kind of funny. It's kind of got a sound a little bit like it's shaking apart. I'm not going to say any more. Let's just hope it doesn't fall apart in the air. No, it shouldn't be that bad. I fly first person normally, and so to me the inside of the helicopter is very important. When you fly outside, well, I'm not the gunner, so I don't get a gunner target. If I were to switch to the gunner position, I think I would be able to go to third person and see the position of the gun, the orientation of the gun. But as the pilot, apparently not. As first person, though, I do get the HUD. The HUD doesn't show gun position because I have not turned on the guns, but if I switch to manual fire...
Manual fire!
now the guns are available to me. It doesn't turn with my head. There's the rockets. We switch to the cannon, 30mm cannon. And if I move my head, you see, oh, it does actually turn a little bit. Did I see that right? I didn't think it turned a little bit. I did this before and it didn't turn with my head, but it looks like it turns a little bit. And line up on something that I can shoot. No, it's not. I don't think it's turning, or not very much at all. And that's typical for the way the guns have worked on other helicopters. When you're the pilot and you don't have a gunner and you manually take over the guns, they shoot only straight. So the fact that the HUD moves with my head is kind of meaningless because the gun does not actually turn with my head. So anyway, I was talking about internal versus external, third person versus first person. I think most people fly ARMA third person. People tend to like this because they can see the helicopter and they can see what's around them. I like to fly first person because it's more challenging, it's more interesting, more difficult, and there are some of the more serious organizations only allow first person. So the dash is important to me, so I'm going to talk some about the dash for the different helicopters. Here I am going full up on the collective, and on the HUD you'll see the lower right, the number 13, 14, that's my vertical speed indicator. Now I'm going to drop the collective to full down, and my vertical speed is now dropping down to -12. Yeah, there it is. The gauge right there to the lower right is the analog gauge for vertical speed, and unfortunately, like the Orca, the old Ka-60, the glass cockpit does not seem to show altitude or speed or vertical speed. It only shows attitude. So it looks a little nicer, meaning it looks like there's a little more definition in the glass cockpit, but it is still really only showing attitude, not other information. You have to go to the HUD for the other information. So, other things to say about this helicopter. The helicopters have slightly different flight models. Kajman is definitely sluggish compared to the Little Bird. Feels actually about the same as the Orca, the Ka-60, but it's very slow turning. This is maximum left stick, this is maximum right stick, and it's slowing. It's a very slow turn. It's a very slow roll rate. Also, this is pulled back on the stick all the way to try and turn, and it doesn't turn a very tight circle either. So it's interesting that overall this is kind of a very sluggish helicopter. Maybe the most sluggish of all the helicopters, actually. But then it is a big helicopter. It's a large transport helicopter that has attack capability, so maybe that's why. We come to a stop so I can get rudder control. Alright, so here's rudder control. That's full right rudder and full left rudder. That seems to be about what I expect from most of the helicopters. The Hummingbird and the Pawnee are a little faster than that, I think. But at least in that respect, this one doesn't feel sluggish. By the way, if you haven't noticed this, rudder becomes useless below about 70 kilometers per hour. Right now I'm at, well, oh, this may be a change. I'm at 145 kilometers per hour, and I actually have some amount of rudder control for steering, which can be good for aiming. On the Alpha, any helicopter that got over 70 kilometers per hour lost all rudder control, or only had a very little amount of rudder control. Now I've come to practically a stop about 10 to 17 kilometers per hour. Now I have more complete rudder control. So one of the big things I was curious to see is if they were going to play with those factors with the future releases of the game, and it looks like they may have modified it a little bit. Alright, let's go put this guy on the ground, and let's go get the next one. Also, I'll note that the Kajman wheels are always extended. They do not retract, whereas the other new helicopters have retractable wheels. And I'm doing very poorly here because I don't know this helicopter. I'm getting used to it. Alright. Hey, I didn't crash. So I can get in the back. When you're in the back, you can close the doors. I just said close right door, and it closed. Close the left door. Open the right door. Open the left door. Not really much more to show there. There's no gunner position for passenger to operate a machine gun. So there's the Kajman. Oh, I didn't do the flares. There are flare pods on the side. ARMA 3 Alpha did not have flares on any of the helicopters. I think I tried them and I never got flares to work, but flares now work in the beta. And they look about like they did in ARMA 2, or at least ARMA 2 with ACE. So here is the AH-99 Blackfoot. It has a Gauss-like cannon in the front, and it has hidden, because it's a stealthy helicopter, rocket pods. I guess that means I'll go to third person and see what they look like when they pop out. Again, the pilot in the back, gunner in the front. This one has a similar glass cockpit. Well, I guess it's different than the Russian helicopter, but it's similar in that it's a little bit more defined, more colorful, but I imagine that it too does not have all the functionality, as they're probably expecting us to depend on the HUD for direction, speed, altitude, vertical speed, and all that. So this one does have retractable wheels because it is a stealth helicopter. They retract somewhere around 30 meters above the ground, and now it is stealthy. I'm going to switch to manual fire. Got the guns, which of course is the front. Switch to the DASR rockets, which they have opened up from the side. And there you go, that's how the rockets look when they're extended. And it's nice to see that they fire left, right, as opposed to pairs. It gives you a little more control over how you distribute and use up your ordnance. And then we can switch to the 4 air-to-air short range. I'm getting out of control here. Let's go to first person and get myself back where I want to be. I have not tried the air-to-air at all. I don't have any targets to shoot, so maybe other people will have to show that, or I'll have to try and get someone to do this with. But I imagine there is some capability to lock onto a target, but since I don't have no targets to lock onto, it's not doing that. But anyway, here's the air-to-air. The gun. see where it's hitting. Oh, there I see it. There it is. And the rockets. Flight-wise, it is a little more responsive than the Kajman. It should be. It is, after all, an attack helicopter, which is not big and heavy, designed for carrying a lot of people. It's turning in much, much tighter circle. You can orbit around a target much easier in this. Well, tightly orbit around a target. Here's maximum roll rate to the left, which is still sluggish. It seems to be that all the helicopters are kind of sluggish in the rolling left to right, except for the Hummingbird and the Pawnee. But once you get it to roll, you can get it to turn, and that's really what you need to do in order to turn around, is roll over and then pull back on the stick, and it will turn quickly. Oh, that's right. I wanted to check and see if it's possible to switch to the gunner's position, and it is not possible to do so. I did this in one of the helicopters earlier, and I don't remember which one it was. Oh, you know what? I think it was the Ghost Hawk. I switched to a machine gunner position. And of course, since there was no pilot on the helicopter, it crashed. So the difference, okay, and that's what it is. When you're allowed to switch, it's because the helicopter actually has cabin space that allows you to actually move from place to place. Obviously, with the attack helicopters, you can't move from the pilot to the gunner position because there's no physical way to do that in the real helicopter. Whereas with the Ghost Hawk, you could get out of the pilot's seat, step into the back of the helicopter, become a passenger, or grab a gun if it were, you know, the real thing. So they have modeled that. But if you're the pilot and you don't have a co-pilot, don't do that because you will crash. So there is the Blackfoot. Next up is the Ghost Hawk, the UH-80 Ghost Hawk. I kind of don't like stealth helicopters, stealth planes period. They just sort of look weird. But actually, that's just kind of a matter of, you know, what grows on you. So this is actually starting to grow on me. Here's the co-pilot's position. To the pilot's seat, and maybe I am being made a liar because I cannot go in the back to the gunner's position. So let me get out and go to door gunner. So just like typical ARMA 2 guns sticking out of the side of the aircraft, you get in the position and you have control of the weapon. And all I can do is get out. I cannot move to another position right now. Or I could be in as a passenger, and there's the passenger compartment. So let's go back to the pilot's position. I like the fact that they are putting actual pilots in the helicopters. This is nothing new. They've been doing this since ARMA 2. Not all flight sims do that. I also like the fact that they have made the sticks actually move. Well, the stick moves, but the collective doesn't. That's, well, okay. The collective doesn't move, but the stick does. It doesn't really matter, but it's just kind of nice to see them add those little touches. So the more I'm flying this, the more I'm actually starting to like it. It seems to have a good feel to it. Reasonably responsive. Can turn around real quick. Seems to go up and down. Well, I mean, as good as any of the helicopters, but it doesn't feel sluggish to me. The Kajman felt sluggish. The Blackfoot felt fine, but the Ghost Hawk, for being a large transport helicopter, actually feels maneuverable. And not difficult to get in and out of places, which is important since you're going to be dropping off a lot of soldiers or picking up soldiers in hot LZs. So I like that. There's not really much. Oh, well, actually, there is something important to say about the Ghost Hawk. It has the same glass cockpit that we saw on the previous helicopter, but it has working gauges here. They are working. Vertical speed indicator, here it is dropping, and now coming back up. And not that it really matters, but you'll see the other gauges like the engine throttle responds to my collective as I'm going up and down, and the torque gauges actually work as well, which basically they just show that the rotors have spun up, that the engine is spun up. Again, most people probably don't care about these things. They're little touches that I like, just kind of make it a little more realistic. But the vertical speed indicator, though, I do like, because they don't have that information in the upper left corner yet. If they're going to add that, I don't know, but it's nice to know. And part of why it's nice to know is because if you come in too hot, you're going to crash. So the vertical speed indicator will help you know whether you're going to crash or not. I've seen that a vertical speed of less than 1,000 feet per minute is usually good enough to not damage the helicopter or hurt anyone in the helicopter, but a vertical speed faster than that when landing will cause damage or injuries. And I have a vertical speed of right around 500 feet per minute. And that's not the best landing in the world because I was talking while trying to land, but I didn't hit the building or the sign. And it looks like my rotors are not even touching the building, so we'll call that a good landing. There's a reason why I landed here, though, because I wanted to show relative size. This is not the smallest helicopter like the Hummingbird, but it's not a huge helicopter either. When we get the Mohawk over here, you'll see just how much bigger it is. So I don't think there's much more to say there. We'll take this back over and go get the Mohawk. And by the way, if you're curious, I fly with a joystick, rudder pedals, and an analog collective, a throttle lever that is an analog collective. I don't use mouse and keyboard. I believe most people fly with mouse and keyboard. Either mouse and keyboard or joystick, both are perfectly effective ways to fly a helicopter. I think that the mouse and keyboard can be initially easier to figure out because you have a little bit more responsiveness in the way the mouse moves, minute control, whereas a joystick you have to practice more to figure out, but once you have practiced, both should be equally capable. The important part there is practice. Flying a helicopter, period, whether it's a simplified flight model or a complex flight model, the simplified model for ARMA or a complex model in a DCS series, it's difficult. Take the time to practice it and get good at it before going on a multiplayer server and crashing your brains out, killing a bunch of people, pissing people off, and maybe getting banned from the server. I think I said this earlier. But my point here was to say that mouse and keyboard or joystick, both are fine. I prefer the joystick though, because it's more like the real thing, more like the way a helicopter flies. So here is the spacious, very spacious CH-49 Mohawk. I guess this would be the equivalent of the Chinook now, in terms of a large passenger cargo helicopter. And again, I'm not able to just move to the pilot's position while inside. But here's the pilot's position. The door actually opens when you get in the position, but you go directly to the pilot's seat. Here again, it has gauges that work. The RPM spin up, the torque spin up, vertical speed indicator, airspeed, altitude, they all generally work. This glass cockpit's a little bit different than the other helicopters, but it's nice to see that they all work. I don't know if what they're gonna place on that panel, if they're gonna do anything. And the middle gauges are just more for show. They don't really tell us anything we need to know. But this information is useful, so it's nice to see them have that information available. So the Mohawk also has retractable landing gear. At this point I'm probably being redundant about what to say, so I'll just show the characteristics real quick. I will note the Mohawk, for being such a large helicopter, is actually very responsive. Look at how quickly I'm able to turn a circle here. That may not be reasonable given its size, but hey, it's a game, it's not a full-on flight sim, so that's the way it is. They may be tweaking this stuff over time, but it's just interesting to note that, like the Ghost Hawk, the Mohawk is actually kind of a joy to fly. It's a very responsive helicopter because it seems to turn very quickly. Now for roll rate, get a little bit of speed here. Here's maximum left, maximum right. Like all the new helicopters, it's pretty sluggish, maybe more sluggish than the others. Again, if you want to turn quickly, you really need to roll a little bit and pull back on the stick, and that's what allows you to turn quickly. Of course, at this much higher speed, it's no longer just flipping a circle. It's actually taking a little more effort to get it to turn a circle. And very slow, rolling back to the middle. So the only other thing really to say about the Mohawk is to actually go land it over in the market square. To kind of show just how big this thing is. And you can see how with first person flying is very difficult, given that I'm trying to land somewhere that I can't even see, and I have trees that I have to clear and then come straight down. So part of why I'm landing here is that this is kind of a spot that I was using to tell relative maneuverability of the helicopters, and in this respect, doing this kind of thing, they all seem about the same. I actually just caught the tree and started to lose control because I had my rear end on the tree. But it's nice to see that I did not immediately blow up just because I touched the tree. Oop. In ARMA 2, it seemed that there were cases where if you landed on a tree or touched a tree, you would immediately blow up, and that is not the case here. So, there you go. This is what I wanted to show you. The helicopter kind of fills the entire square. So it's a big helicopter, and getting it into tight spaces is going to take a little more effort. I feel a little embarrassed that I did so poorly there. All the previous couple times I had attempted this, I had actually done quite good. And of course, the time I record it for everybody to see, I screw up miserably. So let's go land that. So that's pretty much it for the helicopters. I'm going to throw a little bit more here on the end about the other vehicles, but I'm going to switch back to the Hummingbird because it's much easier to see out of the cockpit on the Hummingbird while we go over to where I place the other vehicles. So if you're flying first person and you're having difficulty seeing where you need to land, make a picture of what you're trying to land on and kind of keep it in your mind, but also circle in the way I just did so that you can see where you're going to try and land and come in without hitting anything. Alright, and that's the new helicopters. The MH9, AH9 are still my favorite to fly because they are maneuverable and they have great visibility. That's probably true for a lot of people. So anyway, if you're just interested in helicopters, that's it for the helicopters, but I wanted to show the other new vehicles. So we'll run over here where I placed the transport trucks. Apparently they have decided that transport trucks are cool, so they've added several to the game. Maybe they're intending to create scenarios where supply chain and transporting material is important, I don't know. Because they're not all just troop carriers. Or maybe they are just troop carriers. I don't know. It seems kind of interesting that they made these when these would normally be large equipment carriers, these guys. These are large heavy-duty equipment carriers. It's overkill just to be carrying people in one of these. But anyway, it's kind of interesting to see that they have put the effort into several different types of transport vehicles, like troop carrier and supply carriers. I'm not going to drive them around. They drive pretty much like any vehicle drives in ARMA. Just wanted to show them. And there's the transport trucks. So those are all new. The next thing that's new is they have some slight changes to the boats. They added a couple different color schemes for the rubber dinghies, which are called rescue boats. Maybe they didn't add those. You know what? I'm not sure if they added those. Come to think of it, I never actually pulled up the rubber boats before in the editor. So the color, the red and blue and orange one on the left are the rescue boats. The three black and gray one and camel ones on the right are the attack ones. There's really no difference between them, they're just color schemes. But the new thing is the SEAL team submarines, which are right there. And then of course the three attack boats. So let me land over here and we'll get a closer look. So the attack boats, there's no changes there. I think there's the only change is the color scheme of that one. I think that's new, if I remember correctly. But otherwise they have the machine gunner, the grenade launcher, and now the three different colors. So those two are the grenade. Oh, they're all grenade launchers, and the machine gun on the rear. So nothing new there. But the submarines are the new part. The two different styles. And since I'm not in submarine gear, I'm not going to get in one. Well, I could swim down to it, but I'm just trying to show them real quickly to finish up this video. So then the last thing are the vehicles. There's the Op4 and the Blue 4, Op4 being the red, Blue 4 being the blue. Well, they're not really red and blue, but the Ifrits and the Hunters. But they now have the new team, which is the green team, and the green team has their own little vehicles. And on top of that, we have two armored attack vehicles, which are new. So the Hunter and the Ifrit and the new vehicle, which I forget what it's called, they're armored, but I mean, well, they'll protect you some, but see the two vehicles there on the far right, those are the armored attack vehicles. So let's just get in here and land and take a quick look at them. So this is the AMV-7 Marshall with the little cannon on the top. These are armored personnel carriers, and this is the MSC-3 Merid, which actually has the distinct advantage of being both machine gun and grenade launcher on the top. So make sure you have an RPG handy if you encounter one of these on the enemy team, because these are going to cause some severe damage. I will get in and note one thing. Oh, it's not the... Oh, It's not this one. Oh, it was the trucks. They have mirrors. The trucks have mirrors, and I noticed that the mirrors don't yet show what's behind you. Maybe my graphics settings changed and I got to check that. But I had that on before and the mirrors worked. And I noticed that on the trucks my mirrors were not showing what was behind me, and I'm not sure why that is. Maybe I can get in this one and take a look and see if they're doing it. Yeah, here the mirrors are showing me what's behind. Yeah, the mirrors are working here. But when I drove the trucks before, not in the video, but I had gotten in the trucks previously and drove them around a little bit, and the mirrors did not work. So this looks like the Hunter or the Ifrit, the same kind of console where you can move around and shoot. One has the machine gun, one has the grenade launcher. There's nothing terribly different there than what we already know. So, machine gun, grenade launcher, and unarmed. Although I do see that, which may be a lasing apparatus. When I got in this before, let me check again. Go to commander's seat. Ah, okay, yes. We do have the ability to laze a target. So I'm pressing the fire button and it is, I assume, shining a laser on the Ifrit over there. Ah, fire button to turn it on, fire button to turn it off. So that's new, because the Hunter and the Ifrits don't seem to have that feature. Just to make sure that they didn't add it when I wasn't looking. I do not see any kind of laser sighting on the Hunter. And on the Ifrit, they have stuff that looks like they were intending to add it, but there's no capability to switch to a commander's seat for lasing a target or anything like that. I can go to the driver's seat or the back. So maybe they're going to add it, but at this point it appears that the Ifrit and the Hunter are exactly the same as they were with the Alpha. But the Strider, that's what they're called, the Strider. The Strider has the lasing capability. In fact, notice that the laser is there on the ones with the machine gun and the grenade launcher as well. So that's a feature in all three versions. Now we'll get in this guy. So being that they're armored vehicles, of course, we are inside the vehicle, fully protected. There is not a way to pop your head out right now. So I'm in the driver's seat. Let me go to the gunner's seat. Here's the gunner's seat. Looks like you would expect. You have the ability to move around. You can switch from machine gun to the grenade launcher, and this otherwise works generally like the Ifrit. And then of course, whoops, go to the passenger seat in the back end, which we are fully enclosed and separated from the other positions. Oh, we do have a window, isn't that nice? They do give us a little window to look out so we can see where we're going. Another difference here, which I think this is new, is you can actually bring up the inventory while inside a vehicle. So you can arm yourself from the stores within the vehicle while the vehicle is en route. I don't think that was possible under the Alpha. At least I remember trying a couple times and I don't think it worked. So that's very cool. And a new feature, I believe. And then back to the driver's seat. The vehicles not offer any ability to look I'm turning my head. I have a track IR and I'm turning my head right now. I can zoom in and out with the track IR, but I cannot turn. This is using the mouse, nothing, using my head, nothing. Normally that would be a commander's seat that would do that. So here I am in the gunner's seat, but there is no commander's seat where you can poke your head out and kind of look around and command the vehicle. So it looks like the gunner is going to have to be the person who keeps track of where you're going and what you're doing, or people will probably just do it third person. But then again, if you're playing on servers or with groups of people that don't allow third person, this vehicle could be quite difficult to actually drive because of this. Because if you're doing first person only, this is as good as it gets, and I'm using the mouse to look around. And the Marshal is kind of the same. Similar thing, you can't move around when in the driver's seat. There is no way to poke your head out that I can see here. I go to the gunner's seat. Now I can move the gun around. There's the cannon. It has different rounds. Oh, it does have a machine gun. So I did not realize it had a machine gun. And then to the passenger seat, I did it again. In the back end for the passengers, again, you're kind of isolated from the driver and the gunner. And if you go to inventory, same thing here. You can access stuff in the inventory. So, now where is the machine gun? Oh, I see. Okay. It is there. I just didn't realize it. And maybe I should have done a little more research here, because it looks like it's not just the small cannon, but it is in fact cannon, grenade launcher, and machine gun maybe. So maybe I got to check on that and confirm whether that is the case. Again, I'm looking at this stuff really for the first time. I haven't gotten deep into it because I wanted to kind of get a first impression as I explained it. Oh, now that's another thing that I had not noticed before, is these vehicles have propellers, which I assume to mean that they are intended to be capable of fording or swimming like a boat. So I do believe I'm going to have to go try that and see if they have implemented that, because that would be quite an interesting capability to do that. And the Strider does not have propellers, props, propellers, whatever you call them. And there's really, again, there's nothing really to say about these vehicles. They haven't changed, or at least not that I've noticed. Same as they were before. The rear view still works. The mirrors work. No noticeable changes there. Okay, that's it. I think I'm going to go drive one of these into the ocean and see what happens. But I'm going to do third person, which I normally don't do, but I'm going to do third person because otherwise I will probably just run into a bunch of stuff. Ah, don't do that. This is another thing I think that's new with the alpha. You notice how I'm zooming in on the vehicle. I'm not doing that. I think what happens is as I get close to the buildings, rather than clipping into the building and seeing the interior of the building, it is actually causing my view to zoom in. I think that's new. Well, but then maybe not, because there it just did it when it didn't need to. Alright, here we go, into the ocean. And what do you know? It's working. It's slow, but it does work. And I'm a little surprised that I missed the details about that when I was seeing them talk about or announce these new vehicles. So that's actually quite cool. We'll go back to the beach. So I think that's neat from the point of view that definitely the water operations is something that they wanted to add to ARMA 3 as kind of a new thing. The divers seemed a little strange because it takes a lot of time and effort to go somewhere as a diver versus some of the other kinds of operations, but you know, it's ARMA. You want to do a lot of different things. But if they're adding this kind of stuff, it means clearly they are taking the water operations far more seriously. However, I appear to be stuck, and I'm not able to get out. So I hope that's not a bug. I hope I'm just on a rock. But it may have... No, I don't see a rock. Maybe this is not quite ready for prime time. Or maybe it's a matter that my rear wheels are actually the drive wheels, and since they're not on the ground, I'm not going anywhere. Let's see if I can back out and get some momentum. Not going very far, very fast. It's getting there. There we go. Definitely looks weird. So while I'm doing this, I'll mention that the submarines are SEAL team submarines, which means they are supposed to be used with diving gear. This vehicle, though, of course, is completely watertight. I'm not in diving gear with a rebreather, so not necessary. But then this isn't a submarine either. It's just not going to make it. Alright, well, either I'm doing something wrong, or it is because it's the beta and it's not totally right. So there you have it. There's the new vehicles for ARMA 3 beta. Again, this is the beta a couple days before it was announced to be released. It's supposed to come out on the 25th, so maybe they've got another version of the beta coming in a day or two. But since it came out this weekend, I wanted to check it out and see what all the new vehicles would do. And I will let someone else figure out new weapons and stuff like that, because that's a whole nother complicated topic. I don't even know what they've added there because I'm not as familiar with all the various weapons. So I was just going to talk about vehicles. Alright, well, this is Drakaz, and I hope you enjoyed this. You know, rather than watching my video, maybe go play the game. If you haven't bought it, definitely go buy it. It's very cool. But if you haven't bought it, and this was your best way to see how the beta is different from the alpha, there you go. course, if you already bought the alpha, then the beta should be available to you. To get to the beta in Steam, right-click on ARMA 3 Alpha and go to Properties. Click on the Beta tab, and you should see the ability to select the development build under the Betas tab. Select that, and it should download the beta, and you should be good to go. Okay, that's it. Bye-bye.